The night Marco DeLuca finally saw his maid, she had flour on her cheek and fear in her eyes. She thought he was about to fire her. He thought he was about to say thank you to someone for the first time in a long time. The penthouse was almost silent. Far below, the American city glowed with late-night traffic and neon signs. Inside, the only light was in the kitchen, warm and bright against the glass and steel of the rest of his world. Haley Brooks stood at the stove, stirring a pot of tomato sauce. Her brown hair with bangs was pulled into a messy bun, a few strands sticking to her flushed cheeks. The black maid uniform hugged her soft curves, reminding her of every comment she had ever heard about her body. She kept her shoulders slightly rounded, as if she could disappear into herself. She checked the pasta, tasted the sauce, and smiled a little. "It's for you, okay?" she whispered to the pot, embarrassed by her own habit. "Don't be too salty this time." She reached for a small glass jar on the counter and added a pinch of her secret mix of cheese and herbs, her grandmother's recipe, her private ritual. She didn't know Marco was watching from the doorway. He had come home later than usual, jacket over his arm, tie loose, gun already locked away in the safe by the elevator. Meetings were over, deals done, enemies kept at a careful distance. He expected the same thing he always found at that hour, an empty living room, a plate covered in foil, and silence. Instead, he found Haley. For months, she had been a soft shape in his periphery. The maid who kept his shirt sharp, his schedule on the fridge, his kitchen stocked. He knew her name. He knew she made fresh pasta instead of using the boxed brand his assistant bought. But tonight his eyes refused to slide past her. He watched her move, humming under her breath. She was not small, not fragile, not the type of woman he usually saw at charity events and club lounges. She was full and warm, her body filling the uniform in ways that made his chest tight for reasons he did not understand yet. He liked the way she tasted the food and smiled to herself, like it mattered. He stepped forward. The floor under his shoes made a soft sound. Haley jumped, spinning around, almost dropping the spoon. Her eyes went wide. "Mr. DeLuca," she gasped. I didn't hear you come in. I'm sorry, the kitchen is a mess. I was just finishing your dinner. I'll get out of your way." She grabbed a cloth, wiping the counter in panicked circles that only spread the flour around. "Stop," he said. The word came out more gentle than he expected. She froze. Marco stepped into the light. His white shirt sleeves were rolled up to his forearms, his dark hair slightly messy from the long day. The usual cold mask on his face was still there, but softer. His gaze dropped to the small jar on the counter. "What is that?" he asked. Haley followed his eyes. Her stomach nodded. "Oh, that's just nothing. Just something I add sometimes. I can stop if you don't like it." "How long have you been using it?" She swallowed. "Since my second week here. That was over a year ago." "Yes, sir." He picked up the jar, inspected the contents. "What is it exactly?" "Grated cheese, herbs, garlic," she said, twisting her fingers in her apron. "My grandmother used to make it. She said it made people feel taken care of. I know it's silly. I just thought, your food should taste like someone thought about you." She stared at the floor after she said it, cheeks burning. Marco's jaw flexed. No one talked like that to him. People talked about profit, routes, shipments, respect. Not about his food or whether he felt cared for. He put the jar down carefully. "And you do this every time I eat at home?" "Almost," she said quietly. "If I know you're coming back late, I try to make something fresh." He watched her for a few seconds without speaking. Haley felt heat climb up her neck. Every insecurity screamed in her head at once. He must think she was pathetic, desperate, weird, a chubby maid acting like some kind of wife. "I'm sorry if that's out of line," she rushed out. "It's not in the contract. If you want, I'll go back to the regular recipe and—" "Haley," he interrupted. The way he said her name made her look up. His voice was low, steady, with that authority that made men twice his size listen. But he didn't sound angry. "Put 2 plates on the table," he said. "You're going to eat with me." She blinked. "With you?" "Yes." I can eat later, she said quickly. You must be tired. You need quiet. I'll just serve and… Haley. His gaze held hers. I eat alone in this place almost every night. I am tired of it. Sit down and eat something you made. Her heart raced. No one like him had ever asked her to sit at their table. Her brain went through every reason to refuse. Her uniform pulling at the sides, her thighs not fitting in the chair, the way people's eyes sometimes slid over her with boredom or pity. She bit her lip. Are you sure? Yes. He said it like a decision, not a question. Haley turned away so he wouldn't see the shine in her eyes. She served 2 plates, hands shaking slightly. The pasta slid into the white dishes, steam curling up around her face. When she placed his plate on the small table by the window, she wanted to run to her little room and eat standing up like always. Instead, she set the second plate across from his and forced herself into the chair, trying to sit small. Marco watched her, noting everything, how she tucked her bangs behind her ear, how she held her fork like she had been taught to be polite, even when she felt out of place, how she kept pulling at the front of her uniform like she wanted to hide her stomach. He took a bite of pasta. She stared at him, waiting for a verdict. The sauce is different tonight, he said. Her heart dropped. I'm sorry, I can redo it. I know you like it a certain way, I shouldn't have… It is better, he said simply. Her words died. Better? She repeated. Yes. He took another bite. Eat, Haley. She lifted her fork, her wrist brushing the edge of his plate for a second. A tiny contact, but it sent a strange awareness running up her arm. She tried to ignore it and tasted her own food. It was good, familiar, but sharing it with him made it feel new. You like cooking, he said after a moment. She nodded. I do. You could be a chef in a restaurant. I tried, she said, giving a short, humorless laugh. A small Italian place. The chef shouted all the time. The owner told me I took up too much space in the kitchen and customers preferred to see someone thinner at the counter. Marco felt ice slide into his veins. He said that? Yes. She poked at her pasta. I believed him. I always kind of believed people like him, so I left. I needed a job, found this one and… She lifted a shoulder. It's fine. That man is an idiot, Marco said. The words came out sharp. She blinked in surprise. It's okay, Mr. DeLuca. I know I'm not… She stopped herself before she said pretty. I know I'm not like the girls you probably know. What girls do you think I know? He asked. Perfect ones, she said softly. The ones that fit in expensive dresses. The ones who take pictures by the pool and don't worry about breaking a chair. She tried to make it a joke at the end, but it hurt even as she said it. Marco frowned. Has anyone ever told you what you should expect from people? She shrugged. Not much. I'm here to work. I clean, I cook, I keep things quiet. That's enough. Do you ever want more than enough? He asked. Her eyes met his. For a second, something raw showed there. It doesn't matter what I want, she said. Some things aren't for people like me. He didn't like that answer. He didn't like that she seemed so sure. Before he could decide what to say, the intercom on the wall buzzed. His jaw tightened. The other life. The one with codes and threats and names he never said in front of her. Stay here, he said, putting his fork down and standing. Haley watched him cross the kitchen with calm, controlled steps. He pressed the button. Yeah? He said. Ryan's voice came through, slightly distorted. The black sedan was back, parked across the street for 20 minutes. Same guy as this afternoon. Marco's eyes narrowed. License plate? Already checked. Fake. We're on it. Just wanted you to know you were not imagining it. Marco glanced at Haley. She sat rigid in her chair, fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Keep a man at the entrance all night, Marco said. Discreet. No one else walks up without being checked. Consider it done, Ryan replied. Sleep if you can, boss. The line clicked off. Marco returned to the table. Haley tried to pretend she hadn't heard much, but she was a bad liar. Is everything okay? She asked. It will be, he said. If it's about the black car, I saw it too, she said quietly. He paused. You did? She nodded, eyes serious now. This afternoon when I went out to buy tomatoes, it was parked on the corner. The man inside pretended to read a newspaper, but the pages never moved. I didn't like the way he watched the building. I came back faster than usual. You didn't tell anyone, he said. I thought it was nothing. She admitted. I'm just the maid. You are the person who lives here. He corrected. Next time you tell Ryan or me immediately, you understand? She swallowed. Yes, sir. Something in his tone made her feel important, included. It was strange. He picked up his fork again, but didn't eat right away. He looked at her, really looked, and realized something else. She was the only person who saw both sides of his life. She saw his shirts before the meetings and his face after them. She saw the dishes he liked and the ones he barely touched. She saw when he was late, when he was early, when he was quieter than usual. She saw him all the time, and he had never truly looked back. That realization unsettled him. I'm going to make a change, he said. Haley's stomach twisted. If I did something wrong, I'm really sore. You didn't, he cut in. You did everything right. She fell silent. From now on, when I come home late, you eat with me, he said. Her mouth opened. What? You cook, he said, and you sit. He nodded at the chair she was in. Here, we eat, together. That's not necessary, she protested. You're my boss. People would talk, and I don't look like... I don't care what people would say, he interrupted again. His voice was calm but firm. There are many things I allow others to control. This is not one of them. She stared at him. No one had ever pushed back when she tried to make herself smaller like that. They usually agreed with her or ignored her. Are you sure? She whispered. Yes. She didn't know what to do with his certainty. Something warm and dangerous moved in her chest. Okay, she said finally. They finished the rest of the meal in a quieter, more thoughtful silence. At one point, her fingers brushed the edge of his hand when they both reached for the salt. Both of them paused. Neither mentioned it, but they both felt it. When the plates were empty, Haley stood up automatically. I'll wash these, she said, picking them up. Leave them, he said. She blinked. But you worked enough today, he said. Go to bed. That's not how it works, she said, almost smiling. The dishes don't care how tired I am. Tonight, he said, they do. I'll have someone come early tomorrow. She hesitated, then set the plates back down. Thank you. He watched her untie her apron. Without it, the uniform fell a little differently on her body, softer, more like a dress. Good night, Mr. DeLuca, she said, fingers brushing the little glass jar one more time. Good night, Haley, he replied. She walked down the hall to her small room, heart pounding, mind replaying every second at that table. She pressed her back to the closed door once inside, slid down to sit on the edge of her bed, and let out the breath she had been holding. He asked me to eat with him. He noticed the car because I did. He looked at me. She touched her cheek where his gaze had lingered the longest and shook her head, half afraid to believe any of it. In the kitchen, Marco stayed alone for a long moment. He ran a hand over his face, then picked up the jar of herbs again. He opened the lid and breathed in the scent. Cheese, garlic, basil, comfort, care. He had enough money to buy 10 restaurants, but no one had ever stayed up an extra hour just to make his food feel less lonely. He set the jar back down and pulled out his phone. Ryan, he said when it connected. Yeah, boss? From tomorrow on, I want an extra man on this floor when I'm not here, Marco said. His gaze went to the hallway where Haley had disappeared. Discreet. No one bothers the staff. No one follows them. If someone watches the building, I want to know before they breathe too close. Ryan paused. Got it. Something happened. Marco thought of Haley's voice saying, I'm just the maid, and the way she had curled into herself when she talked about the restaurant owner. No, he lied. Just tightening security. He ended the call and leaned back against the counter, eyes on the little jar and the 2 plates still on the table. He had made a decision without meaning to. He wasn't going to let Haley stay invisible anymore. He just didn't know how much his own life would change because of that. And he had no idea that the next time he walked into this kitchen, he wouldn't just be hungry for food. He would be hungry for her. Marco barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Haley sitting across from him at the table. Her cheeks pink, her bangs slipping into her eyes, her hands shaking when she tried to hide how nervous she was. He didn't understand why it affected him that much. He'd had women in his life, beautiful, elegant, polished, women who fit perfectly into the expensive world he walked through every day. They smiled for cameras, posed in designer clothes, knew which wine to order and when to stay quiet. But none of them had ever looked at him the way Haley did when she thought he wasn't paying attention. Soft, shy, full of something he didn't have a name for yet. He woke up later than usual, showered fast, dressed in a navy suit, and stepped into the kitchen. She was already there. Haley stood by the counter wearing yoga pants and an oversized gray t-shirt, her hair in a messy bun, face fresh, eyes still sleepy. She was cutting strawberries for breakfast, humming again, always humming. The moment she saw him, she stiffened like she'd been caught doing something wrong. "Oh, good morning, Mr. DeLuca," she said, her cheeks instantly warming. "I didn't think you'd be up yet. I can make eggs or pancakes or—" "Haley," he said. She froze, knife midair. "You don't need to rush around when I walk into a room." I wasn't rushing, I just—" "You were," he said, voice calmer than his usual morning tone. "And you don't have to." She blinked at him, confused, as if she wasn't used to being allowed to exist comfortably in someone else's presence. He walked closer, the smell of strawberries mixing with her mild vanilla shampoo. He didn't touch her. He didn't dare. But he stood close enough to see the tiny freckles on her nose. "You slept?" he asked. She nodded. "A little. You worked late. You told me to go to bed," she said, almost smiling. "So I did." Her smile, small, shy, like she only let half of it show, did something to him. He cleared his throat. "Good." She returned to slicing strawberries, slower now, hands steadier. Marco poured himself coffee, leaned against the counter, and watched her quietly. He didn't pretend not to anymore. Something about her made the penthouse feel less like a cold palace and more like a home. "Do you always cook this early?" he asked. She shrugged. "It helps me start the day, and I like knowing everything is ready before you come down." He frowned slightly. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because when everything is perfect, people don't complain." Something sharp twisted in his chest. "Has anyone here ever complained about your work?" he asked. "No," she admitted. "You're actually very easy to take care of. You like simple food, your clothes are organized, you don't leave messes." She paused. "But people in the past complained." He understood. Invisible bruises. Years of being shamed, underestimated, pushed aside. He suddenly hated whoever had taught her that being perfect was the only way to deserve peace. He muttered. Then they were idiots. She looked up at him, startled. "What?" "Anyone who treated you like that," he said simply. "Idiots." Her eyes softened, just for a second. "Thank you." He wasn't used to giving compliments. He wasn't used to wanting to. He changed the subject before he said too much. "Sit." Her eyebrows lifted. "Now?" "Yes. But breakfast isn't ready yet." "I don't care." He pulled out a stool. "Sit." She hesitated, then sat, hands folding in her lap. Marco leaned closer, elbows on the counter, studying her face openly now. Her bangs fell forward again. It was becoming one of his favorite things about her. "What?" she asked nervously. "Nothing." She narrowed her eyes slightly, still soft, never confrontational, but she knew he was lying. Before she could press, his phone buzzed. He looked down. A message from Ryan. "We found the sedan again. Same guy. Do you want extra eyes on Haley today?" Marco's heart tightened. A strange automatic protectiveness washed over him, so natural it alarmed him. Haley saw his expression shift. Is everything okay? She asked gently. Just work. She didn't push. She never did. But she waited, giving him space if he wanted to say more. That was something no one in his world ever did. People demanded answers, alliances, decisions. Not her. He typed back quickly, yes, discreet. No one gets near her without clearance. He put the phone away. Haley resumed cutting strawberries. You don't have to worry, you know. I stay inside most of the time. That's not why I worry. She stopped. Then why? You live here, he said simply. That's enough. She didn't fully believe him. He could see it in her eyes. She still thought of herself as just the maid, not someone who mattered. He'd change that, even if he didn't know how yet. An hour later, Marco left for the office. Haley stayed behind, cleaning the kitchen with the small, focused movements he had started to pay attention to, like the way she tucked her bangs behind her ear, the way she bent to check the oven, the little hum she did without noticing. He kept seeing her in flashes throughout the morning. Her smile, her hands, her voice saying, "Are you sure?" Like she'd never been chosen before. He lost count of how many times he checked the camera feed for the penthouse hallway, pretending it was routine. Every time he saw her moving around the apartment and felt strangely calm. Around noon he called home. Haley answered on the second ring, breathless. "Mr. DeLuca, are you okay?" he asked immediately. "Yes, sorry, I was coming up the stairs. The elevator stopped on another floor. Did you need something?" He paused. He hadn't actually needed anything. He just wanted to hear her voice. "Did you eat?" he asked. "Oh." She laughed softly. "I had a sandwich." "What kind?" "Turkey and lettuce." "That's not enough." Her laugh grew nervous. "It's fine, really. Eat something else." She hesitated. "You don't have to worry about that." "Haley," he said, "I asked a question." "Fine. I'll make pasta later." "You'll eat pasta now," he corrected. "Not later." There was a tiny silence on the line. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll eat." He hung up before he said something ridiculous, like how her voice made his morning better. When he returned home that night, he expected the kitchen to be quiet like always. It wasn't. Haley was there, standing on her toes, trying to reach a jar on the top shelf. Her shirt had ridden up slightly, revealing a soft curve of her lower back. Marco stopped at the doorway, pulse hitting harder than he expected. She didn't hear him until she got the jar, lost her balance, and let out a tiny gasp. He stepped forward and caught her elbow before she fell. Her breath hitched as she looked up at him. "Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you come in." "I noticed," he murmured. His hand was still on her arm. Warm, steady. Her skin under his fingers felt like a revelation. She pulled back gently. "Thank you." He nodded once, slow. She placed the jar on the counter, avoiding his eyes. "I was just making your dinner. I didn't think you'd be home this early." "Did you eat already?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." He raised a brow. "I had pasta," she added quickly. "Good." She cracked a small smile. "You really do worry too much." He stepped closer. "I don't worry too much," he said. "I worry exactly as much as I need to." Her breath caught. She lowered her gaze. "Why?" she whispered, almost to herself. He shouldn't have heard it, but he did. He almost answered. Almost. Before he could, his phone buzzed again. He checked it. A message from Ethan, his lawyer. "Dinner tomorrow with the donors. Bring a date. They expect you not to show up alone again." Marco cursed under his breath. Haley looked up. "Bad news?" He hesitated. He didn't want another cold, flashy woman hanging on his arm. He didn't want to sit at another long table pretending to care about people who only cared about his last name. He wasn't sure what he wanted, until his eyes landed on Haley again, her soft brown hair, her hopeful but hesitant expression, the way she held the jar close to her chest like a shield. And suddenly he knew exactly what he wanted, but he wasn't sure if he had any right to ask. "Haley," he said slowly. She turned toward him fully, unaware her whole life was about to shift. Yes, Mr. DeLuca? He exhaled. I need a favor. She swallowed. Anything. That was the problem. She meant it. His jaw tightened. I need, he paused, choosing the words carefully. Someone to attend a dinner with me tomorrow night. Her eyes widened. A dinner? Like, with you? Me? Yes. Why me? He didn't lie. Because I trust you. She went still. I can pay you extra, he added. It's not a date. It's just so people stop asking questions. Her heart sank a little at those words, even though she nodded. Of course, she said quietly. If that's what you need, I can go. He stepped closer. It's not about needing, he said. It's something else. Something else? She whispered. He didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, he said, voice low and steady, I'll explain everything tomorrow. Haley's fingers tightened around the jar. Her breaths came faster, deeper. Okay, she whispered. I'll be ready. Marco walked past her to hang his jacket, but he didn't get more than 2 steps before he stopped, turned, and looked at her again. The kitchen felt different, warmer, charged. Haley, he said quietly. Yes? You'll stay close to me tomorrow, no matter what happens, understand? Her pulse jumped. Yes. He gave a slow nod and walked away. But she stayed standing right where she was, heart racing, mind spinning. Because something had just changed. And she didn't know it yet. But tomorrow night would be the first time Marco DeLuca touched her hand in public. And he wouldn't let go. Haley barely slept. She kept replaying Marco's words in her head. You'll stay close to me tomorrow, no matter what happens. I trust you. It's not about needing, it's something else. Something else. She turned those 2 words over 100 times, trying to understand them, afraid to hope for too much, afraid to hope at all. By morning, she had convinced herself of a safe explanation. He needed someone he could rely on. He didn't want gossip. She was the invisible option, the one no one would think twice about. It made sense. It also hurt. But when she opened her eyes and saw the garment bag hanging on her doorknob, her breath caught. A handwritten note was pinned to it. Wear this tonight. M. Her hands shook as she unzipped the bag. Inside was a black dress, simple, elegant, soft fabric that stretched gently with a sweetheart neckline and short sleeves. Not revealing, not tight, but beautiful. Beautiful in a way she wasn't used to imagining for herself. Haley pressed the dress to her chest, eyes stinging. Why would he choose something so perfect for her body? Why would he write that note himself instead of telling someone else? Why would he care? She didn't know, but she wore it anyway. That evening, Haley stood in front of the full-length mirror in the staff room, smoothing the dress over her waist and hips. Her brown hair was curled softly, bangs framing her face. A touch of mascara, a hint of blush. She barely recognized herself. Okay, she whispered to her reflection. You're just helping your boss. This isn't real. This doesn't mean anything. But her heart didn't listen. When she stepped out of her room, heels clicking softly on the hallway floor, she found Marco waiting. He was adjusting the cuff of his black suit jacket, but the moment he looked up, he stopped moving, completely. His eyes swept over her slowly, carefully, as if he didn't want to miss a single detail. His breath seemed to pause in his chest. You, he said, voice lower than usual, look beautiful. Haley froze. Beautiful? Her? She blinked several times, convinced she'd misheard. I'm sorry? He stepped closer. Haley, he said, I asked for beautiful, and you delivered more than I expected. Her lips parted, the words caught somewhere in her throat. Marco never complimented anyone, not even socially. He wasn't a man who wasted words, and he had used that one on her. Thank you, she whispered, cheeks warm. I didn't want to embarrass you. Marco frowned sharply. You could never embarrass me. She looked down, overwhelmed. I don't really look like someone who goes to those places. You look exactly like the woman I want standing beside me tonight." Her heart slammed against her rib cage. He said it so simply, like it was obvious, like it was true. She didn't have time to process it. His phone buzzed again with a message from Ethan. "Car is downstairs. Everyone's waiting." Marco extended his hand toward her. "Ready?" She swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes." When she placed her hand in his, something electric passed between them. He didn't let go. The car ride was quiet at first. Haley stared out the window at the city lights, trying not to panic. Marco watched her reflection in the glass when she wasn't looking, wondering why it felt so natural to have her beside him. She smelled like vanilla and something warm he couldn't name. Halfway there, she asked softly, "Who will be at this dinner?" "People who pretend to be harmless," he answered. "Donors, investors, a few politicians." Her stomach dropped. "Politicians?" "Yes." "Do they know what you really do?" "They know enough to stay polite," he said. She didn't ask for more. She didn't want to know. She trusted he wouldn't bring her somewhere unsafe. He glanced at her hands twisting in her lap. "Are you nervous?" "A little." "You don't have to be." "That's easy for you to say," she whispered. "Everyone in that room will be wondering why you brought someone like me." His jaw flexed. "Someone like you? Soft, curvy, invisible, unimportant." The words echoed in her head even though she didn't say them. He turned in his seat, facing her fully. "Listen to me," he said quietly. "Everyone in that room is pretending, trying to impress each other, trying to hide something. You don't have to be like them. You don't have to fit anywhere. You only have to be beside me." Her breath caught. "Okay," she whispered. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. Slow, careful, almost tender. She nearly forgot how to breathe. The event was held in a massive ballroom lit with golden chandeliers, crystal glasses, and tables decorated with white roses. High-caliber guests mingled in expensive clothes, laughter echoing through the space. Heads turned the moment Marco walked in. He was impossible to ignore. Broad shoulders, dark suit, sharp confidence. But when people saw Haley at his side, they paused. Confusion, curiosity, judgment. She felt every stare. Her pulse hammered. Marco noticed instantly. He slid his hand to the small of her back, warm, steady pressure, protective without being possessive. "You're fine," he murmured. "Ignore them. Look at me." She did. And for a moment the room blurred around him. He guided her through the crowd, introducing her only when necessary. "This is Haley. Not my maid, not my assistant, not a friend helping me tonight. Just Haley." She noticed people watched him, then watched her, trying to understand. Some raised their eyebrows. Others whispered. But every time someone's gaze lingered too long, Marco's jaw tightened, and they quickly looked away. At their table, Ethan leaned forward, eyes widening. "Is this—" Marco cut him off with a look. "Haley. She's with me." Ethan nodded instantly. "Pleasure to meet you." Haley smiled nervously. "You too." The dinner began. Food was served. Conversations hummed around them. The wine flowed. Haley sat quietly, unsure of when to speak, how to act, where to put her hands. But every time she shifted uncomfortably, Marco leaned closer and whispered something to anchor her. "You're doing perfect. Relax. Breathe." He ate slowly, watching her more than his plate. Once, when she reached for her glass, their fingers brushed. Both froze. Neither pulled away at first. Something warm and dangerous flickered between them. She finally withdrew her hand, cheeks burning. To distract herself, she asked softly, "Why did you choose me for this?" Marco set his utensils down. "I didn't want someone pretending," he said. "And you don't pretend." She stared at him. He wasn't teasing. He wasn't flattering her. He meant every word. Before she could say anything, a man in a navy suit approached their table with a glass of champagne. "Marco," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, You brought someone new tonight. Haley tensed. Marco's expression cooled instantly. This is Haley. The man's gaze flicked over her, not appreciating, not admiring, sizing. Something ugly, something disrespectful. Marco's hand slid to Haley's waist under the table. Steady, firm, protective. She's with me, Marco said, tone suddenly sharper. The man raised a brow. Interesting choice. Haley lowered her gaze, stung. Marco didn't allow it. He tilted her chin up with 2 fingers, right there, in front of everyone, and made her meet his eyes. Haley, he said in a low tone meant only for her, you belong exactly where you are. Her breath caught. The entire room disappeared. The man in the suit cleared his throat, muttered something, and left quickly. Marco didn't look away from her until she calmed. Only then did he pull his hand back from her waist. Slowly, as if letting go was the last thing he wanted. Later that night, there was dancing. Soft music filled the ballroom. Couples floated across the floor under the chandelier light. Haley watched them from her seat, hands folded, trying not to stare. Marco's chair scraped quietly. He stood, walked to her, and extended his hand again. Dance with me. Her heart nearly stopped. Marco, I don't know how to dance. I do, he said. Just follow me. She shook her head. People are watching. Let them. She hesitated. He leaned down slightly, voice lower. I won't let anything happen to you. Her chest warmed. She placed her hand in his. He pulled her close, closer than she expected, his hand settling around her waist, fingers spreading against the fabric of her dress. Her body fit against his like she had been made for that space. They moved slowly, gently. Her cheek brushed his jaw once, by accident. She whispered, Sorry. Don't be. The room spun softly around them. Haley focused on the simple rhythm of his steps, the warmth of his hand, the steady beat of his heart near her temple. He wasn't smiling, but his eyes had softened in a way she had never seen before. Marco, she whispered. Yes. Why me? He didn't answer, not because he didn't want to. Because saying the truth out loud felt too close to a line he wasn't ready to cross. So instead he said, I'll tell you when I figure it out. Her chest tightened. When the dance ended, he didn't let go right away. He held her for one more breath. One long, warm, dangerous breath. Before reality returned. Time to go, he said softly. The car ride home felt different. Quieter, warmer, charged with something unsaid. She rested her hands on her lap. He rested his elbow on the door, watching her in the passing streetlights. Did you have a good night? She asked carefully. Yes, he said. A long pause. Better than I expected. Her heart flipped. She looked out the window to hide her smile. But in the next intersection, his phone vibrated. He picked it up. His expression darkened. Haley felt the shift instantly. What happened? He didn't answer. He turned the screen toward her. A picture of her from tonight, inside the ballroom. Taken secretly from behind a pillar, sent by an unknown number. And the message below it. Your weakness has a pretty dress tonight. Haley's blood ran cold. Marco's jaw clenched with a quiet fury she had never seen before. Not violent, not loud, but deep and restrained, like a storm contained behind steel doors. She covered her mouth with her hand. Marco. He looked at her with a protectiveness so intense it stole her breath. You're staying close to me, he said quietly. She nodded. He leaned forward, voice lower. No more questioning it, no more arguing. You stay with me. Her pulse throbbed in her throat. Okay, she whispered. But as the car rolled through the city, neither of them knew one thing. From this moment on, Marco wouldn't just protect Haley. He would start falling for her, hard, and she had no idea how close she already was to becoming the center of his world. The message changed everything. Your weakness has a pretty dress tonight. Marco stared at it in the car all the way back to the building. He saved the number. He forwarded it to Ryan without a word. Plans formed quietly in his head, one after another, lines of defense shifting into place. Next to him, Haley sat very still, hands clasped together, the fabric of her dress caught between her fingers. She did not say much. She watched the city pass outside the window and tried not to think about the word weakness. When they finally stepped out of the elevator and into the penthouse, her legs felt unsteady. "I'll change and start cleaning up the kitchen," she said, already moving toward the hallway. "You must be tired. I'll bring you tea." "Haley." His voice stopped her. She turned back. Marco loosened his tie, eyes on her face. "You don't leave this floor unless it's with me or Ryan for the next few days. Understood?" She nodded. "Okay. I'm serious." "I know." She swallowed. "I'll be careful." He studied her for a moment, as if he wanted to say more. Instead, he only said, "Good night, Haley." "Good night, Mr. DeLuca." She went to her room, shut the door, and leaned her head against it, dress still hugging her body. She slipped it off slowly, folded it with care, and placed it back in the garment bag as if it belonged to another person's life. Then she stood in front of the small mirror in her regular t-shirt and shorts and whispered to her reflection, "You forgot your place tonight." The word weakness echoed again, not his, hers, because she was the one who had let that evening mean more than it should. The next day, everything felt different. Not because of obvious changes. The apartment looked the same. The city moved outside like always. But Marco's routine shifted in small ways. Extra cameras appeared in the hallway. 2 new security guards were posted in the lobby. Deliveries were scanned twice. The cars were checked before each trip. And Marco himself changed. He called more people. He spoke in shorter sentences. His shoulders seemed more tense than usual. He still said good morning when he entered the kitchen, but his voice was more distant. His eyes moved over checklists, not over her. Haley felt the space between them grow even when they stood in the same room. On the second morning after the dinner, she placed a plate of scrambled eggs and toast on the table. "Breakfast," she said gently. "Thank you," he replied without looking up from his phone. She stood there for a moment, waiting for something else. A question, a comment, any sign that he saw her standing there in her soft shirt and leggings. It didn't come. "I'll be in the laundry room," she said. "Fine." He didn't mean to sound cold. His head was full of calls and numbers and possibilities of who had sent that message. He was used to compartmentalizing, to placing people and risks in separate boxes. But this time, the boxes bled into each other. Haley walked away with a familiar, heavy ache in her chest. She knew this feeling. It reminded her of every time in her life when she had gotten too close to something good and watched it slip away. By afternoon, she had convinced herself she was the problem. Maybe bringing her to the dinner had been a mistake. Maybe people had laughed. Maybe that picture had made fun of him. Maybe he was now embarrassed and trying to keep some distance. She was not used to being chosen first. She understood how quickly a person could change their mind. In the kitchen that night, she kneaded pasta dough with more force than usual. She wiped a hand across her cheek and left a streak of flour there without noticing. Marco came home late. He paused in the doorway again, just like that first night, but this time he did not let himself stay there long. He stepped in with a shorter stride, suit jacket already open, tie in his pocket. The smell of garlic and fresh dough filled the room. Haley's back was to him. Her brown hair was tied up, her body moving with the steady rhythm of someone trying to put their thoughts into their work. "Good evening," he said. She jumped. "Oh, good evening." Her voice sounded polite. Nothing more. He did not like that. He walked closer. "You didn't hear me come in?" "No," she said. "I was focused." "On what?" "On the pasta." He watched her hands press and fold the dough. "You're angry," he said. She almost laughed at that. "No, I'm busy." He stepped closer. "You avoid looking at me. You answer with one word. You are angry." She sighed, still facing the counter. "You are the boss. You don't have to decode me like that." "I do if it affects you," he replied. She stopped kneading. "Why would it affect you?" she asked, turning halfway toward him. "I'm just the maid, remember?" The words came out sharper than she meant. His eyes narrowed. I never said you are just anything. You don't have to. Her voice shook now. Sometimes people say it without words. A silence stretched between them. The only sound was the faint ticking of the clock above the stove. Marco took a slow breath. He was better at giving orders than dealing with emotions. But he knew he had to step into this, no matter how uncomfortable it felt. You think I'm embarrassed because of you? He said. She looked away. A small piece of pasta dough stuck to her wrist. He noticed everything. Are you? She asked quietly. No. You've barely looked at me since the dinner, she said. You barely talked to me. You used to ask if I had eaten. You used to ask small things. Now it's only yes, no, thank you. It feels like you regret bringing me. He clenched his jaw. He had pulled back to keep her safe, to make sure emotions did not cloud his decisions, to avoid turning her into more of a target. He never thought she would interpret it as shame. I don't regret anything, he said. Her eyes met his again. He continued, slower, as if choosing each word with care. You were the only real person in that room. You stood beside me without pretending. I was proud to have you with me. The word proud hit her hard. Then why are you different? She whispered. Because someone sent that picture, he said. Because they called you my weakness. Because they are watching. If I let this feel too personal, I may miss something I need to see. So your answer is to act like I'm not here, she said. To go back to eating alone, barely speaking? He hesitated. Put that way, it sounded wrong even to him. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Her brows pulled together. Do what? Care about someone without turning them into a liability, he said. Care about someone without putting a target on them. My world does not work like that. Her heart stumbled. You care? She asked, barely audible. He closed his eyes for a brief second, as if that word cost him something. Yes. She took a small step back, like the kitchen had moved under her feet. You can't say that like it's a problem, she said. You're making it sound like I'm damage waiting to happen. He shook his head. That's not what I meant. It's what it sounds like, she insisted. I already spent most of my life feeling like a problem. Too loud, too big, too much, too visible, not visible enough. I will not add dangerous to love to that list. He stared at her. Love. She had not said it as a confession, but the word hung there anyway. He stepped closer on instinct. Haley, he said, voice low, look at me. She did. Her eyes were bright, her chest rising and falling faster. I am not ashamed of you, he said. Not at the table, not on the dance floor, not in this kitchen. Then what are you? She asked. Scared, he said honestly. The word almost never came out of his mouth, but there it was, between them. Scared of what? She asked. He exhaled. Of repeating my mistakes. I lost people before because I thought I could balance everything. Business, family, feelings. I believed I could control every detail. I was wrong. People paid for that. Her expression softened. He went on, eyes not leaving hers. When they called you my weakness, they were wrong about one thing. You don't make me weaker. You make me want to be careful. That is different. But it still scares me because I know what it means when someone finds out what you care about most. Haley swallowed hard. What does it mean? They try to touch it, he said. They try to use it. She understood. Her anger slid into something else. Not acceptance, not yet, but understanding. You could have told me that, she said softly, instead of shutting me out. He forced out a short breath. I am not used to explaining anything. Try, she said. He almost smiled at that. Ryan already put extra security around the building, he said. We are tracking the number that sent the message. I have new cameras watching this floor. Anyone who comes close without reason will talk to my men before they talk to you. That is what I am doing. It is how I know to protect people. And what about here? She asked quietly, placing a hand flat over her own chest. That question he did not know how to answer yet. Before he could try, another voice appeared from the doorway. "I can answer some of that," Ryan said. They both turned. He stood there with a small, respectful distance, hands in his pockets, expression serious. "Sorry," he added. Door was open. "I didn't mean to interrupt, but if we're talking about who paid for what, I was there." Haley looked between them, uncertain. Marco frowned. "What is it?" "Just came to tell you we traced the message to a burner phone that was near the ballroom last night and your building this morning," Ryan said. "Whoever it is, they're close. They know your routine, but that's not what I walked in on." He glanced at Haley. "You think he's ashamed of you?" She flushed. "It's not your business." "Actually, it is," Ryan said gently. "My job is to keep the things he cares about safe, even the ones he refuses to admit he cares about." "Ryan," Marco warned. Ryan ignored him for once. "When he pulls away like that," Ryan continued, "it's not because he's embarrassed. It's because he's terrified he'll put you in the same category as everything he lost. And he hates himself more when that happens than when anyone else gets hurt." Haley went still. Marco's gaze sharpened. "That's enough." Ryan lifted his chin. "Is it? You either tell her, or she walks around this place thinking she's some kind of burden. That's worse than any risk, if you ask me." He turned to Haley again. "He's not good with this stuff. He's good with numbers, contracts, and bulletproof glass. Feelings, not so much. But I've seen how he looks at you in the camera feed when you're not around him. If you knew, you wouldn't be standing there asking if he's ashamed." Her heart raced. "How does he look at me?" she asked, barely breathing. Ryan smiled sadly. "Like you're the first thing in years that makes this place feel less empty." Marco's throat tightened. "That's enough," he repeated, quieter this time. Ryan stepped back. "You two should finish this conversation." "And boss?" Marco didn't answer. "Pushing people away never saved them," Ryan said. "You know that." Then he left, closing the door behind him. Silence filled the kitchen again. Haley turned back to Marco slowly. "Is that true?" she asked. "Do you look at me like that?" He didn't hide this time. "Yes," he said. Her eyes shone. "You scare me," he added, voice rougher now. "Not because of who you are, because of what you make me want. A life that is not built on fear. A home that feels like it did when you sat at that table the first night. I stopped wanting things a long time ago. You brought that back." Her chest ached. "Marco," she whispered. He took a step forward. Then another. He reached up and brushed a bit of flour off her cheek with his thumb. His touch lingered on her skin. Warm, careful. She did not move away. He lowered his hand to her jaw, fingers curving gently, tilting her face up. "Tell me to stop," he said. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, "Don't." That was all he needed. He leaned down and pressed his mouth to hers. The kiss was not rushed. It was steady, deliberate, full of all the words he didn't know how to say. Her hands gripped his shirt, pulling him closer on instinct. His other hand slid around her waist, feeling the softness he had tried so hard not to think about. For the first time in a long time, he did not think about security, exits, threats, meetings. He thought only about the way she tasted like tomatoes and salt, and a little bit of hope. When they finally broke apart, both breathing harder, he rested his forehead against hers. "You're not a weakness," he said quietly. "You're the only thing that makes me feel stronger." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "No one ever said anything like that to me," she admitted. "Then everyone before me was blind." She laughed through the tears, a shaky, genuine sound. He brushed the wetness from her face with his thumb and kissed her again, softer this time. They stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped in a small circle of warmth in the middle of the kitchen, the jar of herbs sitting on the counter nearby, the pasta forgotten. For a short time, the rest of the world stayed outside the door. Then Marco's phone buzzed on the table. He sighed, resting his hand at the small of her back as he reached for it. The message on the screen made his expression change instantly. Haley saw it. "What is it?" she asked, nerves returning. He handed her the phone. A new picture. The angle was different, This time, it was not from the ballroom. It was of the building's hallway, of her door, and the message below it. Close enough yet? Haley's stomach dropped. She looked up at him, fear clear in her eyes. Marco. He took the phone back, jaw set, eyes darker than she had ever seen them. The danger is closer than we thought, he said. He stepped forward, cupped her face again, and kissed her forehead. You stay with me, he added. From now on, you don't take a single step in this building without my eyes or my men on you. Do you understand? She nodded, heart racing. Because now it wasn't just about dinners or dances or warm kitchens. Someone out there knew exactly where she slept. And whoever had sent that message, they were done watching from a distance. Haley didn't sleep. Every sound in the hallway made her sit up straight. Every shadow under her door made her heart pound. She kept replaying the photo of her doorway in her mind, the short message that had chilled her to the bone. Close enough yet? It wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. And because of that, she didn't turn off her light, didn't change into pajamas, didn't lie down. She stayed seated on her bed, knees pulled to her chest, listening to the quiet hum of the penthouse. A soft knock came at her door. Haley, Marco called, voice low. Open up. She stood immediately. When she cracked the door open, he didn't wait. He stepped inside and shut it behind him gently, his presence filling the tiny staff room. He wasn't in his suit anymore. He wore dark lounge pants and a fitted black t-shirt, hair slightly mussed, his shoulders tense. There was something raw in his face, anger, worry, something deeper he wasn't used to showing. You're still awake, he said. Of course I'm awake, she whispered. How could I sleep after that? She pointed weakly toward the hallway. Marco moved to her and placed his hands on her arms, not grabbing but grounding. I should never have let it get this close, he said quietly. I underestimated how far someone would go. It's not your fault. It is, he insisted softly. You're in my world now. Everything that touches me touches you. Her voice trembled. Are you saying this is because of the dinner? He exhaled slowly. I'm saying someone wanted to see how far they could push, and they pushed too close. She looked up at him. Should I leave? Go somewhere else? A hotel? My sister's... No. The word came out sharp, immediate. He took a breath and softened his tone. You're not going anywhere. If you leave, I can't protect you. Here I know every door, every camera, every blind spot. Out there, I can't control anything. Haley lowered her gaze. I don't want to be a problem. He tilted her chin up gently. You're not a problem. You're the one thing I refuse to lose control of. Her heart fluttered painfully. He released her face only when he sensed she was breathing a little steadier. I'm setting you up in the guest room, he said, the one near my office. There's a lock on the inside and a guard stationed outside the hallway. You'll be safer there. She nodded. Okay. Pack a few things. She turned to her small dresser, but her hands trembled too much to open the drawer properly. Clothes slipped to the floor. Marco watched for a second. Then he stepped forward and placed a hand over hers. Let me, he murmured. He helped her fold a few shirts, grabbed her toothbrush, and placed everything into a small black bag. She watched him silently, the Mafia boss packing her things with more care than she had ever seen anyone use on her belongings. When he finished, he took her hand. Come on. He opened the door and led her down the hall. She felt safer with every step he took in front of her, his posture alert, shoulders squared, like he was daring anyone to try something. The guest room was warm, lit by a soft lamp, a large bed, thick blankets, and a window that overlooked the glowing skyline. Marco set her bag on the dresser. You'll sleep here, he said. She nodded. He didn't move for a moment, didn't speak, just looked at her. Are you scared? He asked quietly. She hesitated. A little. You don't have to pretend with me. Something in his voice broke her. Her chest tightened, eyes burning. I'm not used to having anyone worry about me. Now his expression softened painfully. You have me. he said simply. Her breath caught. And as long as I'm here, he continued, no one gets near you. She blinked rapidly, trying to hold back the tears. I'm sorry, she whispered, not even sure why. He stepped closer. Don't apologize, ever. Not for fear, not for needing someone. She swallowed. I just feel like I'm making things harder for you. You're making things harder, he said, because I care more than I should, and I don't know how to turn that off. She didn't have words. Her feelings for him, slow and warm and terrifying, were becoming too big to hide. She whispered, what if someone hurts you because of me? His eyes darkened. I'm not the one you should be worrying about. They stood close now, very close. The room felt smaller, softer. Their breaths mingled. Marco lifted a hand and brushed a lock of hair from her cheek. She shivered at the touch. You should sleep, he whispered. She nodded. Will you? She stopped, embarrassed. He waited. Will I what? Her voice was tiny. Will you stay? Just until I fall asleep. His throat worked as he swallowed. I will. He turned off the bright lamp, leaving the soft, warm light by the bed. She slipped under the covers, the blankets cocooning her. He sat beside her, one hand resting gently on the mattress, the other near her shoulder, as if he didn't want to touch her without permission, but couldn't bring himself to move farther away. Her eyes closed slowly. His presence eased the tightness in her chest, his steady breathing calming her heartbeat. Marco, she whispered. Yes. Earlier, when you kissed me, did you mean it or? Before she could finish, his hand slid to her cheek and his thumb stroked her skin tenderly. I meant every second of it, he said. Her breath stuttered. And I've wanted to do it again all night. Her lips parted. Then why haven't you? Because right now, he said softly, you need safety more than you need confusion. Her heart throbbed. He leaned closer, brushed a soft kiss to her forehead, and whispered, You're not confusion to me. You're clarity I'm afraid to want too much. Something inside her broke open. She reached out and touched his hand lightly. Stay until I sleep, she murmured again. I'm here. And he stayed. She drifted off slowly, her breathing steady and warm. Marco watched her, his eyes soft in the dim light. Something in her face, peaceful, vulnerable, trusting, made him feel things he had locked away long ago. When her breaths deepened into sleep, he brushed a knuckle down her cheek and whispered, You changed everything. Then he stood, turned off the lamp, and left the room quietly. Not to rest, to work. To find whoever had gotten close enough to take that picture, and to make sure they never got close again. The next afternoon, things escalated. Haley stayed in the penthouse, helping organize the kitchen, trying not to let fear swallow her. She checked the guest room door twice, 3 times, making sure the lock worked. She peeked out at the hallway cameras. She washed her hands so many times they became dry. She didn't want Marco to see how anxious she truly was. She didn't want to be another problem for him. When he came home in the late afternoon, she was chopping vegetables, trying to lose herself in the sounds of cooking. He noticed her stiff shoulders immediately. You're not okay, he said softly. She closed her eyes for a moment. I'm trying. He walked around the counter, stood in front of her, and gently took the knife from her hand. Haley. She looked up. Talk to me. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. It's stupid. Nothing you feel is stupid. She wiped her cheek quickly. I keep thinking, maybe if I weren't here, none of this would have happened. He cupped her face, not letting her look away. If you weren't here, something else would have happened. This isn't about you. It's about someone trying to send me a message. But the picture was of my door. And that's exactly why it crossed a line. His voice deepened. They made this personal, and they shouldn't have. She sniffed. But I don't want you to get hurt. He leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers, closing the small distance between them. I won't, he said. But I can't say the same if someone touches you. Her breath shook. Marco. He exhaled slowly. the weight of months, years, of loneliness and silence evident in the way he held her face. "I need you to understand something," he said, voice low and vulnerable. "Before last week, I didn't let anyone close. Not really. Not in years. And then, you were just here, making pasta at 2 in the morning, humming to yourself, putting basil in my food like you were sneaking love into it." She flushed. "And suddenly," he continued, "I couldn't unsee you." Her heartbeat stumbled. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you think the danger changed how I feel." His thumb stroked her cheek. "It didn't. It only made it clearer." She swallowed. "Clearer? How?" He exhaled. "I can't lose someone again. And I can't pretend I don't care about you. Both things are true, and both things scare the hell out of me." Her eyes softened. "Marco." He shook his head gently. "Let me finish." She nodded. "I don't know how to do this perfectly," he said. "I don't know how to balance feelings and safety. But I know what I want." He looked at her like she was the only bright thing in a dark room. "I want you safe," he said. "I want you close. I want you here." Her voice cracked. "I want to be here." He closed his eyes for a moment, relief washing over him. When he opened them, his voice was softer. "Good." Both of them breathed out at the same time, the tension dissolving into something warm and heavy and inevitable. Marco lowered his forehead to hers again. "Haley," he whispered. If something happens, if anyone gets too close, run straight to me. Not away. To me." She nodded against him. "I will. And don't ever think you're a burden," he added. "You're the first thing in years that doesn't feel like a burden." Tears spilled again. He brushed them gently with his thumb. "Come here," he murmured. And she stepped into his arms. He held her for a long, long moment, her cheek pressed to his chest, his heartbeat steady and strong under her ear. She melted into him, finally letting herself rest against someone instead of pretending she didn't need it. For the first time in her life, she felt protected, cherished, wanted. When she finally pulled back slightly, breathing steadier, she whispered, "You said once that you remembered me from somewhere." Marco's breath hitched slightly. "Yes." "Where?" He hesitated, then gave her the truth. "A diner. 10 years ago. You gave me food. You smiled at me even though I looked like trouble. You said I looked cold and handed me a bowl of pasta. You disappeared before I could ask your name." Her eyes widened. "That was you?" "Yes." She stared at him. "I always wondered what happened to that man. And I always wondered if that girl was real," he said softly. "When you made pasta my first week here, I knew." Her hand flew to her mouth. "You recognized me? I never forgot you." Silence swept the kitchen like a warm tide. Haley's voice shook. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know how to explain that I had spent years remembering a stranger's kindness. And because when I first hired you, I wasn't someone who deserved that kindness." She stepped closer. "You were hungry and scared. That didn't make you undeserving." His jaw clenched. "You don't know the things I did after that night." "Maybe not," she said. "But I know who you are now." Her fingers brushed his cheek. "And that is the man I'm standing in front of." He closed his eyes at the touch. For a moment, it felt like the threat outside the walls didn't exist. Then his phone vibrated on the counter. He opened it. "Ryan, we need you downstairs. Now." Marco's expression tightened. "What is it?" Haley whispered. He lifted his gaze to her, calm but serious. "Someone was inside the building," he said. "Not close to you, but close enough." Her stomach dropped. "Close enough for what?" He took her hand. "To change everything," he said. He squeezed her fingers. "And you're coming with me." The elevator ride felt endless. Marco kept Haley close as they descended to the private security floor under the building. His hand held hers firmly, thumb brushing the back of her knuckles in a slow, grounding rhythm. She wasn't shaking, but her pulse was fast enough that he could feel it. He stepped closer. She leaned into him without thinking. The elevator dinged softly. Ryan stood waiting. He wasn't smiling. Neither were the men behind him. "Talk," Marco ordered. Ryan nodded. "Someone tried to get through the service entrance. They made it past the outer lock, but panicked when they triggered the motion sensor. They're gone, but they were here." Haley's breath hitched. Marco's grip tightened. "Any footage?" Marco asked. Ryan hesitated. "That's the problem." Marco's jaw clenched. "What problem?" The camera was erased. A cold silence spread between them. Marco's voice dropped. "Erased by who?" "We're still checking," Ryan said. But whoever it was, they knew exactly which panel to hit. They were trained. Trained, professional, intentional. Haley's stomach churned. Marco stepped in front of her, blocking everyone else's view. "You're safe," he murmured. "You're with me." She nodded, even though her heart was pounding hard enough to hurt. Ryan cleared his throat. "Boss, there's more. We did a sweep. Nothing harmful found." But what?" Ryan glanced at Haley apologetically, then held up a small object sealed in a plastic evidence bag. A silver coin, plain, cold, but engraved with a date. The date of the ballroom dinner. Haley's heart dropped. Marco stared at it for a long second. Then he nodded once. "I know who it is," he said. "Marco," Haley whispered. "Who would do this?" He turned to her gently. "Someone I should have handled years ago." Her eyes widened. "Someone from your past." "Yes." He stepped closer. "But he won't touch you, not a single hair." Her breath trembled. "What do you need me to do?" He cupped her cheek with one warm hand. "Stay close." And for the first time, she didn't just nod. She stepped into him, her forehead brushing his chest, fingers gripping the front of his shirt. He felt it, all of it, her trust, her fear, her growing attachment. He wrapped his arms around her, jaw resting lightly against the top of her head. Ryan cleared his throat. Boss? We'll wait upstairs. Take your time." Marco didn't release her. Not yet. He waited until her breathing slowed, until her body eased against his. Only then did he guide her gently back to the elevator. Back in the penthouse, the city lights poured softly through the windows, casting faint gold on the marble floors. Everything felt too quiet, too still. Haley walked to the kitchen without thinking, her hands needing something familiar to hold. She touched the counter, the drawer, the jar of herbs, safe places, safe routines. Marco watched her from the doorway. "You don't have to cook tonight," he said. She turned to him. "I know, I just didn't realize how much this kitchen feels like mine until today." He walked toward her slowly. "That's because it is." Her breath caught. "Marco." He stopped right in front of her, close enough to touch. "Haley, look at me." She did. "You're part of this home," he said. "Not the staff, not the background. You." Her eyes filled instantly. "I've never been part of anything before. You are now." She laughed softly. "Because I make pasta?" "Because you make this place feel alive," he said without hesitation. "Because you're the first person I think about when I walk in. Because you listen. Because you care. Because when you smile, this place doesn't feel like a fortress anymore." Her breath trembled. He reached out and brushed her bangs aside, tucking them carefully behind her ear. "You matter here," he whispered. "More than I know how to explain." Her cheeks flushed, but her eyes, they were soft, open, vulnerable, in a way she never let herself be. She took a slow breath. "Can I tell you something?" "Anything." "I've never had someone to come home to," she admitted. "Not really. I've always been the one serving the food, doing the laundry, cleaning up after other people's families, always watching, never belonging." Marco's brows pulled together. She continued quietly. "But here, with you, I feel like maybe I belong somewhere for the first time." He stepped closer. "You do." She swallowed. "Even now, with everything happening?" He cupped her jaw gently. Especially now. Her lips parted. Why? He leaned in, voice low and truthful. Because you're not just the maid anymore. Her heart stuttered. You're mine, he said softly. Not possessive, not commanding, but intimate, vulnerable, like a confession he didn't intend to speak out loud. She closed her eyes for a second, overwhelmed. Marco. He pressed his forehead to hers, hands sliding to her waist with a tenderness that made her knees weaken. Can I kiss you? He whispered. She nodded instantly, breathless. Yes. He kissed her, slow, deep, warm. No rush, no fear, no hesitation this time. Her hands slid up his arms, her body molding into his naturally. The kiss was soft but full of everything they hadn't said yet. Want, trust, relief, hope. When they finally separated, her chest rose and fell quickly. Marco brushed his thumb across her bottom lip. I'm sorry if I scared you earlier. You didn't, she whispered. What scares me is how much I feel for you already. His expression shifted, something dark and tender at the same time. Then we're scared together. She smiled through her nerves. What now? He exhaled slowly. Now. We take this one step at a time, but we take it together. Her fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt. I want that. Good. He kissed her again, and again. Each one softer, lingering slightly longer, grounding her in warmth she never thought she'd have. When they pulled apart, her voice was small but steady. Marco, earlier, when you said someone was inside the building, is it someone dangerous? He didn't lie. Yes. And you really think it's someone connected to the coin? Yes. She drew a shaky breath. Are you in danger because of me? His expression softened. Haley, I've been in danger long before you came into my life. The only difference now is that I have someone worth protecting. Her heart squeezed. He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. And I will. Her throat tightened. You can't protect me from everything. I can try. His gaze held hers. And I'll never stop. She smiled sadly. What about protecting your own heart? He huffed a soft laugh. Too late for that. She flushed. He turned to the stove and flicked on a burner. Come here. She joined him at the counter, and he handed her a wooden spoon. We're cooking together tonight, he said, no matter what's going on outside those walls. She laughed, a small, fragile, beautiful sound. He leaned down and kissed her shoulder gently. I like that sound. She blushed. The sound of me cooking? The sound of you happy. Her breath caught. They cooked together, slow, close, touching often without meaning to. Her hips brushed his. His hand rested once on her lower back, steadying her when she leaned over the pot. It was domestic, soft, intimate in a way neither expected. When the pasta was ready, he served her first. Always her first. They sat at the small table, knees brushing, candles flickering from the counter. She twirled the pasta slowly, watching him. Do you always cook like this? He shook his head. I can't cook. Her eyebrows lifted. This is good. I'm following your instructions. She smiled shyly. Maybe I should teach you more. He smirked. Maybe you should. The air between them warmed again. After dinner, he took her plate gently. Let me. You don't wash dishes, she teased softly. I do for you. Her cheeks heated instantly. He washed while she dried, their arms brushing occasionally. Every touch felt like a small spark. When they finished, he turned to her. Come here. She walked to him without asking why. He lifted her hand, kissed the inside of her wrist, and whispered, You make this place feel like home. Her eyes softened. Marco. He stepped closer until her back touched the counter. You asked me what happened earlier, he murmured. You asked who was inside the building. She nodded slowly. Before I tell you anything, I need you to know one thing first. His fingers slid along her jaw again, slow and deliberate. I won't let anyone take you from me. Her breath caught. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't posturing. He was promising. Her voice trembled. Who are they? He exhaled slowly, eyes darkening with the truth he had avoided saying for years. Someone who used to stand where Ryan stands now, he said. Someone who wants what I have. Someone who thinks going after you is the fastest way to make me break. She froze. Why would anyone want to hurt me? She whispered. Because, he said gently, you're the part of my life that matters most. Her lips parted. He continued softly. And because they know what I didn't want to admit until now. Her heartbeat hammered. What? She breathed. He took her face between his hands, his thumb brushing her cheek in the softest, most reverent way. That you're not just someone I care about. He swallowed. That you're the person I can't lose. Her knees nearly gave out. He pulled her into his arms, not like she was fragile, but like she belonged there. And she did. He held her against his chest, breathing her in slowly, his hand running down her back in soothing strokes. She whispered into his shirt, I don't want to lose you either. He closed his eyes. You won't. They stood together like that for what felt like forever, heart against heart, breath against breath, his warmth wrapped around her like a promise. But then, a sharp buzz from Marco's phone broke the moment. He glanced at the screen. His face changed instantly. Haley's stomach flipped. What is it? He held the phone out. A new message. A new photo. A new angle. Not of her door. Not of the hallway. This time, of the kitchen window from outside. Zoomed in. Focused on them. Holding each other. And below it, 4 chilling words. Now I know for sure. Haley's breath stopped. Marco's eyes hardened. It's time, he said quietly. Tomorrow we end this. She swallowed. End it how? He looked down at her, jaw set, but eyes full of something fierce and tender and unshakable. By telling the truth, he said. Her heart raced. What truth? Marco stepped closer, cupping her cheek with trembling intensity. The truth about us. Marco didn't sleep that night either. He kept replaying the last photo in his mind, not the threat, not the outside view of the window. Her, in his arms. Now I know for sure. It meant the person behind those messages had finally found the exact line to cross. Morning came with a gray light over the city. Haley woke in the guest room feeling heavy, her brain still foggy from everything that had happened. For a few seconds she forgot. Then she remembered the image of the two of them on his phone. She sat up fast. There was a soft knock on the door. Haley, Marco called. It's me. She opened, heart fluttering just from the sight of him. He was already dressed in a dark suit, shirt open at the collar, hair styled, eyes more focused than she had ever seen. Good morning, she whispered. He stepped in, closed the door gently, and searched her face. Did you sleep at all? A little, she answered honestly. You? He almost smiled. I don't remember how to sleep when things are like this. She swallowed. What happens now? He didn't hesitate. Now, he said, I end this. Her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her t-shirt. And how? He exhaled slowly. The man behind the messages. His name is Caleb Archer. He used to work for me. He wanted more money, more power, more control than I would ever give him. I fired him, quietly, cleanly. He didn't like being removed. She listened, eyes wide. He knows my routines, Marco continued. He knows my weaknesses. At least he thinks he does. Her pulse quickened. And he knows about me now. Yes. She looked down, suddenly feeling that old weight again. I told you I was a problem. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them in 2 strides. Look at me, he said. She did. You are not a problem. You are the reason I am dealing with this now instead of letting it rot in the background for another year. You are the reason I want things clean and safe. His voice softened. You are the reason I'm walking into this with a clear head instead of anger. Her eyes filled. I don't want you to get hurt. I won't. he said quietly. And I'm not going alone. Ryan, Ethan, my men, we're prepared. This is a conversation that should have happened a long time ago. Today, it happens. She took a shaky breath. What do you need me to do? He brushed his knuckles gently along her jaw. I need you to stay in my office today, not here alone, not somewhere unprotected. My office has reinforced glass, security access, cameras. You'll be there with Ryan and one more guard. You'll be safe. You promise? She whispered. I don't make promises I can't keep, he said. Yes, I promise. Her chest warmed even in the fear. Okay. And when I come back, his gaze deepened. We talk, everything. No more half-truths. No more walking around what this is. Her heart tripped. You mean about us? Yes. Her voice was tiny. What if you come back and realize you don't want this anymore? He stared at her like she had said something impossible. That's not going to happen, he said. If anything, I'm afraid of how much more I'll want when I walk back through that door. Her lips parted. He stepped closer, one hand sliding around her waist, pulling her gently into him. I am coming back to you, he said softly. Not to this building, not to this job, to you. She nodded, eyes wet. Then I'll be waiting. He kissed her. Slow, intentional, like he was memorizing the shape of her mouth, like he was leaving a promise there. When they separated, he rested his forehead on hers for one last second. Stay with Ryan, he murmured. Trust him. I do. He breathed out. Good. The hours in Marco's office felt longer than any day of Haley's life. Ryan tried to make things lighter. He brought coffee, pointed out the cameras, talked her through how safe the building really was when the right people were watching. He even told her a silly story about Marco yelling at a broken coffee machine years ago. He looked ready to throw it out of the window, Ryan said, half smiling. But there was a kid watching from the lobby, so he fixed it with a spoon and pretended that was his plan. Haley tried to smile. He pretends he doesn't care what people think. He cares more than you know, Ryan said gently. Especially when it comes to you. Her cheeks flushed. Why are you all so sure of that? Ryan nodded toward the large monitor on the wall. It showed a split-screen view of different parts of the building, entrances, elevators, hallway, kitchen. Most men with his power check the cameras for threats, he said. He checks them to see if you're okay, if you ate, if you went to bed, if you're humming in the kitchen again. Her throat tightened. You're exaggerating. I'm not, Ryan replied. We used to live in a fortress. Now we live in a home. That's you. She wiped at her eyes. I don't recognize myself sometimes. How so? I used to never expect anything, she admitted. No text, no call, no message, no one worrying if I got home safe. Now I'm sitting in an office with bulletproof glass because someone powerful is afraid of losing me. She shook her head slowly. It feels unreal. Ryan leaned back in the chair across from her. It's very real, Haley. You changed the center of his gravity. That's not a small thing. She hugged herself lightly. I don't know if I deserve that. Ryan smiled softly. That's the one thing you're wrong about. The intercom on the desk buzzed. Both of them jumped a little, then relaxed. It was just Ethan checking in, saying everything was going as planned. Legal talks, negotiations, boundaries. An agreement that would send Caleb Archer very far from their city, under the watchful eye of people Marco trusted more than himself. No raised voices, no blood, no chaos. Just quiet, firm endings. Time still crawled. Haley walked to the window and looked out at the streets below, so high the people looked like tiny moving dots. She pressed her hand to the glass. Why here? She asked quietly. Why did you all choose this city? Ryan shrugged. Because it's big enough to disappear in and small enough to own if you play it right, and because the food's good. She laughed softly despite everything. Will it ever be normal? She whispered. Ryan thought for a second. I don't know what normal looks like for someone like him, but I know what calm looks like, and I've only seen that when you're around. Her chest warmed. "And you?" she asked. "What do you think about all this?" Ryan smirked. "I think the boss is finally letting himself want something human, and I think if you two don't end up together, the entire building will go into mourning." She stared at him. "That bad?" "That obvious," he corrected. Before she could answer, the door opened. Marco walked in. He looked tired, but unharmed. His tie was gone, top button undone, but his eyes were clear, steady, light in a way she hadn't seen in days. Haley's breath left her lungs in a rush. She didn't walk to him, she ran. He barely had time to open his arms before she collided with his chest, hugging him hard, face pressed against him. He let out a low breath and wrapped both arms around her, lifting her slightly off the ground for a second. Ryan stood, nodded once at Marco with a small, satisfied look, and quietly stepped out, closing the door behind him. "You're okay," she whispered into Marco's shirt. "I am," he said, holding her tighter. "We're okay." She leaned back just enough to search his face. "What happened?" "It's done," he said. "Caleb is gone. Far from here. Watched by people I trust. He signed things that make it impossible for him to move money or men anywhere near this city again. If he tries, everything he cares about freezes." A small, hard smile flickered over his lips. "He knows better than to test me." She studied him carefully. "No one got hurt?" "No one," he said. "I promised you I wouldn't bring violence into this. I kept that promise." Relief flooded her. For the first time in days, her shoulders dropped, her body truly relaxing against him. "So, it's over?" she asked. "Yes," he said. Then softer, "At least that part." She frowned slightly. "What part is left?" He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Our part." Her heart began to pound for a very different reason. "Come with me," he said. He brought her back to the penthouse. The lights inside were low. The city outside glowed brighter than usual against the glass. The hallway was quiet, peaceful. "Wait here," he said at the entrance to the living room. She blinked. "Why?" "Because I'm asking you to," he said gently. "Please." She nodded, suddenly shy. "Okay." He disappeared around the corner toward the kitchen. Haley stood there, hugging herself, mind racing. In the reflection of the window, she saw her own outline, soft, small, unsure. She had no idea what he was planning. After a few minutes, his voice carried from the kitchen. "Haley," he called. "Come in." She walked slowly, heart in her throat. When she stepped into the kitchen, she stopped. The overhead lights were dimmed. Warm under-cabinet lights glowed softly. Candles flickered on the counter and on the small table. The jar of herbs sat in the center like a centerpiece. 2 plates were set, 2 glasses, real napkins, not paper. And Marco, standing by the stove, wearing a black shirt with the sleeves rolled up, stirring a pot with a look of nervous concentration she had never seen on his face before. "What is this?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. He looked up at her. "This," he said slowly, "is your kitchen." Her eyes stung instantly. He motioned her closer. "Come see." She walked to his side. In the pot, pasta simmered in a tomato sauce that smelled shockingly good. "You cooked," she said, almost laughing in surprise. "You actually cooked." "I followed your recipe," he replied. "From the first night I really saw you." Her heart squeezed. "I probably ruined it," he added. She shook her head, tears spilling over now. "It smells perfect." He picked up the jar of herbs. "Your grandmother's," he said. "You told me once it makes people feel cared for." She nodded, chest aching. He added a pinch to the pot, stirred slowly, then turned off the heat. "I wanted tonight to feel like that," he said quietly. "Cared for." He plated the pasta with more care than skill, set 1 plate at each spot at the small table, and pulled out her chair. "Sit," he said. She sat. He took the seat across from her. For a second she was back in that first late night. The nervous maid, the silent boss, the invisible woman suddenly asked to share a meal. Except now his eyes weren't guarded. They were open, soft, full. "Why did you do all this?" she asked, wiping at her face. "Because today I cut ties with everything that tried to use fear to control me," he said, "and I'm not going to let fear control this." "This?" Her voice shook. "Us," he said simply. She swallowed hard. "I told you earlier," he continued, "that we needed the truth. No more lines half drawn. No more pretending you're just the maid who cooks amazing pasta and notices strange cars on the street." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, hands folded. "You are not my staff," he said. "You are not my weakness. You are not temporary." Her lips parted. "You're the woman I love," he said. Time stopped. The room went quiet except for the soft hum of the fridge and the faint sounds of the city outside. Haley stared at him, tears slipping down her cheeks, breath caught in her chest. "You love me?" she whispered. "Yes." His voice didn't shake. "I tried to ignore it. I tried to stay distant. Every time I pulled away, it felt worse. Because the truth didn't change. I love the way you care about the smallest details. I love the way you hum when you cook. I love that you stayed up late to make food feel less lonely for me before I even deserved it. I love your laugh. I love your curves. I love that you notice danger before my trained men sometimes. I love that you made my home a home." She covered her mouth with her hand. He went on, softer, eyes locked on hers. "And I love you exactly the way you are. Not less because of your body, not in spite of it, because of it, because of the way you take up space when you finally let yourself, because of the way you fit in my arms like you've always belonged there." A sob laugh escaped her, shaky and full of disbelief and relief at the same time. "No one has ever said anything like that to me," she whispered. "They should have," he said. "They were wrong. Every person who made you feel small, who made you feel like you had to apologize for existing the way you do, they were wrong. I see you, all of you, and I don't want less of it. I want more." Her hand trembled on the table. "I love you too," she blurted. He froze. "I love you," she repeated, voice firmer now. "I tried not to. I told myself I was just your maid, that women like me are not meant to be loved by men like you. I told myself it was impossible. But every time you walked into this kitchen, every time you actually saw me, it got harder to pretend." She wiped her face and laughed softly at herself. "I fell in love with you making coffee at 6 in the morning, she said, "with you ordering extra security because I noticed a car, with you asking if I had eaten, with you telling me to expect more from life." He swallowed hard. "And when you called me beautiful," she added, "everything I believed about myself cracked a little." He let out a shaky breath. "Haley, I love you," she said again, completely, clumsily, scared and all. "But it's real. It's mine, and I can't pretend otherwise anymore." He pushed back his chair and stood. Her heart jumped. He walked around the table, stopped in front of her, and slowly lowered himself to one knee. Her breath stopped. "Marco," he took her hand carefully. "I'm not good with grand speeches," he said, "but I know one thing." He looked up at her like she was the only person in the world. "I don't want you as my maid," he said. "I want you as my partner, my equal, my home. I want our mornings together, our nights together. I want you cooking in this kitchen if that makes you happy. And I want to build you your own restaurant if that's your dream. I want to share everything I am and everything I have with you." She shook her head slightly, tears falling freely now. "Marco." He reached into his pocket and took out a small black box. "I bought this the day after the dinner," he confessed, "before the messages escalated, before I knew how far this would go. I was just stupid enough to think I could handle everything on my own." He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring, a thin gold band with a single diamond, small but bright. Her breath hitched. "I won't promise you a life without fear," he said, "but I will promise you this. I'll spend every day making sure you feel chosen, safe, and loved. I will do everything in my power to keep danger at the door and softness in these walls. I will listen. I will learn. I will be better for you." He squeezed her hand gently. "Haley Brooks," he said quietly, "will you marry me?" She sobbed out a laugh. "You're serious?" "Yes." "You want to marry me?" She shook her head, overwhelmed. "Me. Not some perfect woman in magazines. Me with my soft arms and big hips and everything people called wrong about me. I want all of it," he said. "All of you. Permanently." She broke. "Yes," she said, almost choking on the word. "Yes, of course, yes. I would marry you in this kitchen with flour on my face and dishes in the sink. I don't care." Relief crashed through him so fast he laughed, something he almost never did. He slid the ring onto her finger, hands steady for the first time that day. It fit perfectly. She stared at it, tears blurring her vision, chest full and aching in the best way. "It's simple," she whispered. "It's honest," he replied. "Like us." She cupped his face with both hands and pulled him up into a kiss. This one was different, not tentative, not afraid, certain. He wrapped his arms around her, lifting her slightly, spinning her a fraction before setting her back on her feet. They both laughed against each other's mouths. When they finally separated, he rested his forehead against hers. "Mrs. DeLuca," he whispered, testing the words. She shivered. "That sounds unbelievable." "It sounds right," he said. They sat again, side by side now instead of across from each other, their chairs pulled close. They ate the imperfect pasta and laughed when he admitted he burned the first batch. "It's still good," she said. "It's good because you're here," he answered. And she believed him. For the first time in her life, she believed that love could be hers. Months later, the kitchen looked different again. Same counters, same stove, same jar of herbs. But now, 2 mugs sat by the coffee machine every morning. 2 sets of keys hung by the door. A framed photo of a small, intimate wedding rested on the shelf. Marco in a dark suit, Haley in a simple white dress that fit her curves beautifully, her bangs framing her glowing face. Ryan and Ethan stood in the background of the picture, both pretending they weren't wiping their eyes. Haley stood at the stove in soft shorts and an oversized t-shirt with DeLuca's written on it, the name of the small restaurant she and Marco were quietly building together just a few blocks away. Her hair was up, flour dusting her cheek. She stirred a pot of sauce, humming. Behind her, footsteps approached. Strong arms slid around her waist, pulling her back gently into a broad chest. She smiled instantly, relaxing into the familiar hold. "Good morning, wife," Marco murmured against her neck. "Good morning, husband," she replied, cheeks warm. He kissed her shoulder, then her cheek, then that spot just below her ear that made her melt a little. "Smells good," he said. "It's your grandmother's recipe," she joked. He huffed a soft laugh. "You improved it." She turned in his arms and looked up at him. His hair was softer now that he slept better. The tension in his shoulders wasn't gone, but it was different. Lighter, anchored by something other than fear. By her. "How was last night?" she asked. "Any trouble?" "Nothing," he said. "Business is quieter, legitimate. Boring, even." Her eyes sparkled. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "It's my favorite thing," he corrected, brushing her cheek with his thumb. He glanced around the kitchen, at the jar, the photos, the soft light through the window. "This," he said quietly, "is my favorite place." She smiled. "The kitchen?" He shook his head, eyes warm and steady on hers. "Anywhere you are." Her heart swelled. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed him, slow and content. No rush, no fear at the edges. The city moved on outside. The same streets, the same chaos, the same noise. But inside that kitchen, in that home, in that life they built together, a curvy woman who once believed love wasn't for her, and a mafia boss who had closed his heart for years stood in each other's arms, finally sure of one thing: they were exactly where they were meant to be. And every night, when the lights dimmed and the pot simmered and the jar of herbs caught the warm glow again, Haley would whisper to the sauce out of habit, This is for you, idiot." And every night, Marco would hear her, walk in, kiss her cheek, and prove with his presence, his hands, his eyes, and his steady, quiet love that she would never, ever be invisible again. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.